Welcome to Digging into the Future. Today we have with us Steve Smith from Zayo, and last time he was back, this is one of our second time guests joining us. And Steve was on us. We actually did this during COVID, and I think you were.
Yeah, that's right. Good memory. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
So so it's been 5 years. What's been going on in Zayo? Well, tell us, give us the snapshot.
Well, thanks for having me, Bill. Always good to see you. A lot going on at Zayo. So time is going by fast. I've been there coming up on 5 years. I think you remember when you and I first talked, the founder, who you know well, Dan Caruso, I think was there 7 or 8 months after it went private, March of 20, and then he convinced me with the owners to come in and grab a hold of it and take it to the next level. So it's been a busy, coming up on 6 years. As you remember, he took a 46 company roll-up that created Zayo at that point. We've added 4 more, so we'll be up to 50 acquisitions here. When we close the biggest one that we've ever done here in the first half of the year with a carve out of Crown Castle's fiber and small cell assets. So we've been very busy on the planning for that the last 8-9 months as we're going through the regulatory. But the company's been on a great run. We've been, hardening the network. We've been turning it in from an inorganic roll-up to an organic growth machine. And it's been an interesting 5 years. And in the beginning, we were satisfying all the cloud and all the digitization requirements in the industry for enterprises and hyperscalers and data centers. And now it's evolved, obviously, to all the artificial intelligence demands that we're seeing, and we're right in the middle of that. So we're building the next set of highways, mostly in North America.
Yep.
You probably remember we also had a European business that we have carved out during my tenure here, that we will probably merge at some point in Europe to get more scale in Europe, similar to what the data centers did in Europe years ago.
Yeah. So you're completely nationwide now? Tell us about the network. Is it, are you north to south, east to west? Is it all there?
It's the biggest independent network in North America, including Canada, and we do some business in Mexico. One company's bigger in scale and girth, and it's Lumen, who is also a roll-up, but bigger roll-ups of companies you and I remember well, Global Crossing and Time Telecom and Level 3 and all the great big companies in the early days. And Dan and Zayo rolled up a bunch of smaller companies that created this business. So the 2 big national platforms are Lumen and Zayo. But we are building more next generation routes that'll underpin the traffic patterns for AI than anybody in the country. Yeah. So we probably have over 15 new long haul routes we're building now, and these are major routes that take 2 to 4 years to build. You remember those days? Yeah. And they're between major growth corridors where all the hyperscalers have determined where the AI growth is going to be. So it's super busy on that end, and then of course we have thousands of enterprises that we help for standard connectivity demands. So yeah, super busy, and getting ready to, as I said earlier, to close our 50th acquisition, which is a very big one for us. It's an $8.5 billion carve out, US, of Crown Castle's fiber and small cell assets. We're taking the fiber. The small cells are actually going to go to one of our owners, EQT. But the small cells will ride on the fiber network. Okay. So pretty interesting relationship.
Yeah, well, but I guess it's also, everyone's talking about the edge now, right? So it's also like, how do you, AI is the big factory sort of race is, I wouldn't say it's over, but it sounds like the next step is going to be, all right, now what do you put on the ends of these things to get inference right out to where the customers are, right? And it's
we've been pretty selective on the training of all these models, because as you know, they're out in remote areas where there's power and land and electricity, and we all have read and we all are aware of the constraints going on with that. But it's definitely moving into the inference phase. You can see it. The requirements we get from enterprises and from companies we deal with is, I don't know a company today, and certainly in North America where we participate, that's not doing proof of concept or use cases to figure out how to adopt AI. Yeah. I mean, you and I have talked about this. I don't think there'll be an application in the world that won't be improved by AI. Yep. I think it's a horizontal capability that's going to affect everything in our day-to-day work. And different than almost any other technology shift, it's not a tool like we have in the previous decades. It's a different way of working. It's intelligence. Yes. So we've been excited about it because it's an industrial change that's going to affect how we work, how value is created, how the company runs its business. And it's exciting to see, and it's being adopted faster than almost anything you and I've experienced in our careers. So we're paying close attention to it. So we're working on the long haul routes to accommodate it. We're also very focused on the metro networks.
Yep.
In Zayo, really the simplest way to think about it is long haul routes combined with metro.
Now, do you see yourself as like a metro consolidator too? I mean, because you've got, for example, Alta Fiber's here talking, and all these sort of smaller guys that are sort of own, sort of the old RBOC sort of metro networks. Yep. I mean, you see you guys consolidating those guys at some point?
Well, actually, the roll-up when I arrived, there was 46 acquisitions, was a roll-up of both long haul and metro assets. But the crown thing that we talked about just a minute ago is exactly, the whole thesis for that was they're very dense metro networks, mostly Northeast, Southeast, West Coast, and up in the middle of the country. So the combination of their metro density and our long haul capability, and we have some metro density, really puts us in a great position to accommodate as training of AI goes back to the metros, when companies start using it, which is going to solve all the questions that we read about every day. Where's the revenue? How are we going to fund this? What's the return going to be? Well, once companies start using it in these use cases, when it moves to inference, it's in the metros.
Yeah.
It won't be done in the middle of Montana or the middle of Pennsylvania where the models are being trained. All that stuff's going to come back to the metropolitan areas, as you and I know, and that's where companies are headquartered.
Yep.
That's where the growth corridors are.
Yep.
And that's where people are going to use AI.
No, and it is fascinating because obviously you were a data center operator years ago, and that was probably actually more of your career was a data center guy than and also you're a software guy too, right? I mean, that's the amazing thing is, but yeah, no, it's where we look at the next step is going to be fascinating because I think I agree. It's the edge is the place that and what do you? I mean, essentially, one of the questions I ask everyone who comes on recently is, what do we think is at the edge? Do we think it's going to be GPUs now at the edge and all these sort of water-cooled, sort of high-dense data centers, or is it going to be more like the old Amazon sort of LZ kind of, what does it look like in the metros, around the metros?
We're a network, as you know, and so we've paid attention to the core network demands, as well as edge, as well as cloud.
Yeah.
And then we think of all three of those components when we're building network solutions. So I think the architecture of networks is going to change dramatically with AI.
Yeah.
We're going to move from a static CDN-based moving data around the internet to very personalized data. Our phones, our devices are going to have agents on them.
Yep.
And it's going to get very personalized. And so the amount of middle mile, the amount of metro density, the amount of edge capacity is going to grow exponentially. And I think it's already started, as you know. So we pay attention to all parts of the network.
Yeah.
A lot of hype now on the training of the models because they're out where all these huge campuses are in Texas.
Yeah, I'd say
it's mind-boggling to see how much capacity is being put in. Years ago, you could, when data centers were being built, the network requirements would come 12 to 18 months later.
Yeah.
Now, with these campuses being built, with the density of them, and with the development of AI, they have to think about the connectivity as well as the compute right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And they do. And networks are changing. It's gone from just, hey, I need a network, to it better be reliable. It better be something that I can change on the fly. The world is scaling.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, it's like, it's interesting, if you map the population centers and then you map power generation, they're two different places, right? And so all of a sudden your network that might have been built for power, for population centers is no longer the network that you need to, but it may only be a temporary thing. That's the other thing, is that these factories, do they have a 5, 10, 15-year life, or are they forever? It's sort of interesting because, it's, you think about networks. Yeah, you have to build, how many fiber pairs do you put into one of these things? Like, if you're building a gigawatt center, when
I first started 5 years ago, and I shifted from the data center world to the network world, we were building 12 to 24 fibers on a route.
Yeah.
You know what we're doing today? It's 400 to thousands of fibers. So the conduits are bigger, the pipes are bigger, the routes are more dense, and so the amount of fiber that's being put in the ground today to accommodate the shift to AI is hard to get your head around.
Oh, and I'm sure the fibers are also carrying a ton of traffic as well, right? I mean, you're at least 20, 40 terabits or something like that per fiber.
Well, the pace of and the density of these routes, and there's a big change from when you and I watched the .com. The big dilemma going on now is this like the .com again? Are we in a bubble? How do you know if you're in a bubble? I having lived through, and you and I lived through both of these, I think there's a lot of differences now. These big hyperscalers are funding all of this from operating cash flow.
Yep.
That wasn't necessarily the case back in the late 90s, right?
No,
You were part of the telco industry.
Yeah,
I was around it. A lot of debt was put out to accommodate that from the looseness of the world. You look at the circular financing going on today, it's equity.
Yeah.
And so, take NVIDIA, and they're investing in all these companies, and they're using their chips. So, they're getting revenue. Wall Street loves that. But if the company doesn't do well, guess what? They own the company. They're going to own part of the company.
Yeah.
It's equity. It's not, it's a whole different world from when we watched the dot-com era grow up. Plus, nobody's building on spec anymore.
Yeah.
Remember the days when we used to build a route on spec or build a data center on spec? That doesn't go on anymore. So when we build a new route, we have one of the big hyperscalers anchoring it.
Yeah.
So, and they're paying up front, they're paying as we go, but they take a long time to build these routes. These are 2 to 4, we're building from, Chicago to Reno. These are the highest growth corridors in the future. Yeah. And the thing I love about what we do now is we are so in tight with these large hyperscalers and the emerging ones. So the GPU as a service companies, or NeoClouds as we call them, there's all kinds of names. Some of them don't like to be called NeoClouds, they like to be called next generation hyperscalers. They're doing amazing things. Yeah. And a lot of these executives are from Google, from Amazon, from Microsoft. They're in the industry and they move around. But we're paying attention to both of them, because there's going to be winners and losers like there was in the dot-com. And so we're patient, but we're watching where the needs are going to be and going where the future is going to be, where the puck's going to be. And they have a hard time predicting too. We used to think, well, they can see out there 36 months. No, things are changing very, very fast now. So we have to be very adaptable and very rapid in our responses to these guys.
Yeah, I would say that they might be the only place where there's sort of a little bit of question as where the bubble sits, because I would see that sort of. It's an interesting group, because they're sitting between you and the hyperscale in some ways, or between the data center operator and the hyperscaler, right? So there may be some stuff. You have a theory on this?
Well, you and I talk to these companies all the time. I think the risk of underinvesting is greater than the risk of overinvesting. Okay. I actually do. I actually think this thing is such a big change compared to what we watch with cloud and PCs and mobile and all the other trends we've lived through. I think today the price is such a big change. It's horizontal. It's going to touch everything. It's going to affect every application in the world, and I think the risk of missing out on this is too high. Yeah. And I think these are the smartest companies in our industry, right? Yeah. Could they all be wrong? Yeah. I don't think so. I think there'll be some winners and losers, and I think we have to pay attention to that. But we're super selective on where we go invest, and we spend a lot of capital a year to go behind, the key routes that we want to do. Yep. But it's kind of fun watching. This is kind of like watching when the highways were built, and then the railroads were built, and then the, urban sprawl was done. All those times, the scale was going so fast, and it kind of outran the systems that underpin, because the systems couldn't support this high growth mentality. And so I think we're getting ready to hit that time again, because we know it, right? The scale's hitting us on power and water and land. And I think the ecosystem mentality of these companies now, the winners are going to be people that think about all that together. Yeah. And maybe even own a lot of that together. Yeah. And then the private capital that's in the industry today, since you and I started doing this, is immense. Yeah. And you have to pay attention to the amount of private capital coming in, because they're some of the smartest investors in the world. Yeah. And they know where this stuff's going. And so a lot of changes certainly from the dot-com era to now. Yeah, I'm a big believer that, but I think there's going to be some bumps here and there, and there always will be bumps. Yeah. Let's talk about so AI. Let's think out 5 years. What do you think it all looks like? I mean, as a data center operator, and let's talk about it from the data center perspective. All of us built these air-cooled, pretty simple data centers. You put cloud, you had your hyperscale guy, you sign up for a 10-year contract. Now you've got water cooling, you've got chips that actually have maybe a life of 2 or a year or 2, and they could be changing out, so you could be doing a capital refresh. And now the chips are actually the lead, right? The fact that the chips now are twice as much in the ecosystem as they were before. And so they actually impact things, right? So what happens with them, whereas the data center business used to be it was a pretty steady Eddie, right? I mean, it was. When I left HP and went to Equinix in 2007 to become the CEO, I think our power per cabinet was 3-4 kW per cabinet. Yeah. And some of these deployments now, excuse me, are 100 kW per cabinet?
Yeah.
It's made air-cooled obsolete.
Yeah.
So it has to go to liquid, right? So, it's fascinating to see the advancement of technology with the density of these data centers. And the campuses that are being built now. Just look what's going on in Texas. I mean, politicians return your phone calls. Land is cheaper than most. Power is cheaper than most other places in the country. And the amount of companies going to all over Texas now to build these huge campuses is it's a great story.
Yeah.
And you wonder what California's thinking. You wonder what Ashburn's thinking, watching all this density go there. So it's fascinating to see where this is going to end up. But listen, the adoption rates are faster than anything else we've ever seen. So it's irreversible in my mind.
Yep.
Now, will the use cases all play out? Will the political situation support it? Is the security concerns going to be addressed with the governance models? I mean, all those things have to get thought about. But it's an industrial change, and I think over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, companies are going to adopt it. I don't know an enterprise CEO or CIO or CTO that's not doing use cases or proof of concepts right now, spending $2 to $5 to $10 to $15 million, going to their board to say, here's our AI use cases we're doing now, to go test them to make sure. And it's already affecting healthcare and education, and it's going to go fast in a couple sectors. But I don't think there's going to be a company out there that's not going to adopt some amount of AI to go run their companies more efficiently.
Oh, of course.
Unfortunately, and you and I have talked about this, Bill, I think the blue-collar workforce is going to be less affected.
Yeah.
I think the white-collar workforce is going to be affected.
Yeah.
And I love Jensen Huang's response to, if you were a young 20, 30-year-old today, what would you go do to advance your career? You'd go learn about AI.
Yeah.
Go study the heck out of AI.
Yep.
Use ChatGPT and all the rest of the tools and start figuring out how to adopt it.
Yep.
Because it's there won't be an IT system or an IT organization that will be able to run the millions of transactions per second without AI.
Yeah.
They just won't.
Yeah.
So in our company now, we're adopting AI in IT in the network to do predictive, preventative maintenance, to do all kinds of alarm correlation. We're doing so much stuff. So we probably have 30 use cases going on inside of Zayo today to adopt.
Yep.
Now, some of them, when we do the proof of concept, we'll back away from them. We're also, as we go into 26, we're putting ChatGPT on every employee's desk.
Yep.
So we're teaching the entire company how to use it.
Yep.
We're doing a center of excellence to manage all the hardware and software companies that are bringing tools to us. And then all our big core systems like ServiceNow, like Oracle to run financials, we're making sure we're injecting AI into every one of those big core systems that run the company.
Yeah.
So we're full speed ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it is interesting. When a lot of kids go to business school, and one of the big courses you take, there's operations research, right? Mm-hmm. And so those algorithms that's actually where I think you're going to see a big impact of AI, because those things used to take a lot of time, and now that happens in a second, right? Like it's the optimization of and it's in everything we're going to do, and it's going
to be like electricity.
Yeah, it will be. It's the Google. What do you say? It's going to be more powerful than fire, right?
I haven't heard that. Oh,
yeah, it was interesting. It's.
I tell you, Google's got, in my mind. I just heard about this, and we're pretty plugged into all the big players in the hyperscale space, and I'm sure you saw this. Google's coming out to take their TPUs that they've used internally to run, YouTube and all the rest of the business. They've been maturing it for years, to use it externally. And it's going to compete with the GPUs that NVIDIA and AMD and everybody else are doing. I think that's going to be very interesting to watch. Yeah. Google basically runs the internet.
Yeah.
I know it's a pretty broad statement, but they kind of do.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's brilliant to watch what Jensen's done with NVIDIA, and we do quite a bit. I love just the culture and the speed and the business they're doing, and we're doing quite a few interesting things with them. But it doesn't surprise me all the partnerships they're building to create these circular investments and these relationships, because when you stare at Google, they make these TPUs work externally. You're into a different game, right? Yeah. Are the GPUs going to win in training? Maybe are TPUs going to win in inference?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe both will survive, but
also Google for us that were in the telecom industry, we never thought that anyone would be able to globalize networks.
No.
Google's done it.
Google's done it.
not whether it be submarine cables, you start looking at data centers. Their infrastructure is global. They're the first true global company. I mean, you could argue Amazon and Microsoft are not far behind, but the reality is they did what the telcos never could do. The AT&Ts, the Verizons, all these guys had this vision of having these global networks. These guys have actually done it.
Well, and as you know, all the hyperscalers deeply understand capacity and connectivity.
Yep.
I mean, I think they build 60 to 70% of their own data centers, and then they source the rest that's created all the data center world that you and I know about. And same thing with the connectivity. These guys are pretty sophisticated.
Well, no, and you talk about, we call it the NeoClouds and the Nuvo, but that's really just it's also a way that they are essentially syndicating out the risk of sort of building these things out, right? So these guys are buying chips and then they're leasing from. So they're actually de-risking their balance sheets in some ways with these guys.
I heard a stat, I don't know if it's right or not, that there's 70 to 80 of these GPU as a service NeoClouds around the world. There's like 4, 5, 6 in every country. And NVIDIA is behind 25 to 50% of them in some form or fashion. With some level of investment. It's brilliant. I just think it's brilliant what Jensen and his team has done, and I think watching that it matters a lot. I'm sure Google's watching that very closely. I'm sure AWS and even Oracle is. I mean, all these guys are in this game, and Microsoft in such a big way. It's fascinating to watch, and the world needs them all. I mean, they're all going to be accommodating this thing. So.
Well, the other thing is that they probably can't survive if they don't do it, right? So, I mean, you think about it. Google, is there going to be something called search very long from here? I mean, search, does it exist, or has it become, you go into your AI machine, right? And it's
I read something that a ChatGPT query requires 10x the amount of electricity that a Google search requires, a Siri search.
Oh, wow.
10x the electricity. Why is that? Well, the amount of content being accommodated to answer, and the depth of the answers that are coming out of these systems now. So it's pretty crazy. I mean, you even think about fiber. You were in the fiber business before I got into it, and 100 milliseconds is like blinking. Right. And in 100 milliseconds, you can move traffic halfway around the world in 100 milliseconds on fiber. Right. And so the amount of latency requirements when it comes back to the metros for inference to use this stuff is going to get really dense. And one of the things we did with my old company with Equinix, we because of their knowledge of interconnection, they know it's coming back. They've sort of played very selectively in the training. They weren't as big as these other players are. And I think when it comes back to the metros, Equinix is going to show up again. Because they understand interconnection and moving this stuff around. We put together a blueprint and we announced it together. And I'm glad we did it with them because they truly understand it on helping companies, enterprises, when it starts to become into the metros and everybody's using it, how to connect their network to the training data centers, the inference data centers, the interconnection hubs, and what kind of network architecture you need. So we've built this framework of an architecture blueprint that we're taking out to the market now with Equinix.
That's awesome, because I think that is the big, that's going to be the problem that everyone has to, and also what does it look like, and how do you standardize it, right? Like so that everyone uses the same, and in the past with cloud, you really had Amazon sort of led the way, right? Because they kind of went out there and said, all right, I need 3 of these nodes, around every metro, boom, 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 and then Microsoft followed and Google. It was sort of like an ecosystem that followed, but that ecosystem isn't here yet, right? Like, and no one knows exactly what it's going to look like.
That's the biggest question we're trying to solve: is what is the network architecture requirements when AI becomes real and it goes from static data moving around CDNs and other, the way we've done it the last 20 years, to personalization. And we all have an agent in all our devices, and we're not typing icons anymore, tapping icons. You have an agent on your device, and you're just telling it what you want it to do. I mean, if that's where we're going the next 3 to 5 years, you imagine the amount of networking and capacity and new architecture required to accommodate that?
Oh yeah, because it's an IX, but with any type of access coming into it, and it's also an IX that also has to be able to think, right? Which is the IX today is largely just okay. You want to go there, you go there, you go there.
I think personalization is the next big constraint we're going to be faced to figure out.
And that you're right. I think it's that new IX is going to be much more of a interactive, versus. We could obviously talk about this all day. Anyway, Steve, thanks for joining us on Digging in the Future. Thanks for your insights on the world. Obviously, this interview could have gone 4 hours, to be honest. You're a great resource, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us here on Digging in the Future.
Always good to see you.